Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the April 20th Financial Oversight Committee meeting. And I'm going to call the meeting to order. And to start, is anyone other than LCAT taping the meeting as per Mass General Laws? LCAT, thank you, Don, for taping us. Next, if we could go around the room, all the way around, and introduce ourselves.
Hi, I'm Gregory Thompson. I am the chair of the school committee.
And I'm Pamela Blair, Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Gordon Smith. I'm the Superintendent of Schools.
And I'm Dawn Starks, Chair of Finance Committee.
Dave Sealer, committee member. Jim White, committee member.
Ralph Page, President of the East Long Meadow Town Council.
Marilyn Richards, Vice President of the East Long Meadow Town Council.
Tom Christensen, Deputy Town Manager.
Thank you.
Did we get Kathy?
Kathy Hill.
Yes, I'm here from afar.
In a nice place. Very nice. Next, let's turn to our meeting minutes. Hopefully, we've all been able to read them. Matt Boucher was our secretary last time, and Matt is unable to attend today. And I need a volunteer, and I'm looking at one of the two, to take minutes for today. Who would like to step up?
I would do my best.
Okay.
I will step up, okay?
Okay, thank you. And so you also, another great resource is these are taped on LCAT. So if you miss things because it's hard to take notes and be engaged. So I strongly suggest, take some chicken scratch, but you can go back and get the exactness of
Excellent.
it. You'll be fine. You were educated in our school system, so you'll be fine.
My best.
Yeah. Okay. So having said that, because we are Zooming today, when we vote, we have to vote individually. And so I am looking for any changes or anything here. If not, I would entertain a motion and second to
Motion to approve. Second.
All right. Kathy.
Yes, ma'am. I can't hear you.
Oh, Kathy. Sorry. Voting yes or no on approving the minutes?
Yes. Voting yes.
I'm voting yes.
Yes. Yes.
And Ralph? No, you're not, because you don't vote.
Ex officio non-voting.
Yes, correct. All right, here we are. Go ahead. So
Who's trying?
today we are here with the education department, and we're discussing the budget. And today is a day of listening, learning, and getting any informational questions you have, clarifications. We've done in the past, I believe, was you would start, and if we had any questions, we can stop and ask. I've allocated 4 minutes this, and I put the school department up front in our agenda and our meeting schedule in case we have to circle back with any major questions. Or if not, we can always do email back and forth if there's simple, small questions. I hate to pull people out of work for a couple of small questions. We'll see where we go. Gordon, I will open the floor to you.
Thank you very much. We're excited to discuss our budget request with all of you and answer any questions that we can. I did pass out. Hopefully everybody had a chance to it's a simple budget overview. I figured it might give us a roadmap. Kathy, were you able to retrieve that in the email?
Do. I have it on my iPad. I can see it.
Okay.
It's very helpful.
Thank you. And so basically just wanted to give all of you a little bit of a roadmap into how we produce the budget, which now is part of the entire town budget, which I think you have this document, the bigger one. Okay, great. So we always start with looking at, so as we're starting to develop any budget, what are the key challenges that we think we're going to face? And certainly what are our SMART goals and how do we continue to move things forward for all of our students? So you see, as the first bullet point, we talk about ensuring that all students continue to have what they need to grow socially, emotionally, and academically. And that's, I know you hear probably a lot of that over the last few years as we've both been in the pandemic and out of the pandemic. But truth be told, that's something that we've been doing for a number of years, even pre-pandemic, because even though we didn't have all the research that we have now, I think somewhat innately, good teachers always knew that the better that they knew their students who were in front of them, the better that they could establish a climate in the classroom that put everyone in a situation of comfort, the better students were going to do academically and start to grow and mature and develop the skills that we want to see them develop as they go pre-K through 12. So that's the number one goal, always the number one challenge on our mind. Are we doing that for all of our students? Then we get into some of the more specific challenges as we face the year to year. And so this was an interesting fall as the organization that controls what service providers that are out of district service providers. And so these are institutions, schools that will take students who, for whatever reason, can't fully be supported in a mainstream K-12 school district. It could be a day school. It could be a situation where it's a residential school. And so usually we're used to seeing the increases be somewhere around 2%. This year, all of you know, we're facing incredible inflation and so forth. The Mass Operational Services Division, which oversees that, approved a 14% increase. So initially we're thinking, wow, that's going to be possibly well over $2 million for us in terms of a budget challenge. Actually translated into about a 17% increase, which is part of what we would consider level services, because these are students for the most part who are already placed. As we're looking at what are our level service costs going to be, that's part of what we were looking at. The other big item for us was we knew that we needed to do a much better job investing in our paraprofessional unit. This is a group close to 108 individuals who work in the schools whose job really has dramatically changed between probably 2016, just pre-pandemic, and now where we are in terms of what we're asking them to do, what responsibilities they have on a daily basis. And they were a group who were lagging behind for whatever reason, our other bargaining units. And over the last few years, they were a group where we were just ahead of minimum wage. Because, you know, Massachusetts had gone through a 5-year period of increasing minimum wage. Actually, I think starting to talk about doing that again, but we were just ahead. We needed to change that. That was another big, we're still in negotiations with them, but we're very close. Hopefully Tuesday, we might have a full tentative agreement that we can take to the school committee.
Gordon, I know you said that their job descriptions have changed and what they do. Have their educational requirements changed? So
that's a great question. What we do is we ask them all to become highly qualified through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So that's one element, that's an exact requirement. But we also try to put incentives in the contract. So if they do go on for additional training, we've created some positions within the contract, potential contract, that could allow them to go get increased training and then also start to earn more and take on more individual responsibility. And so, yes, there are incentives in there, as well as we invite them to all of our professional development. So we want them to be integral with what we're doing each year in the classroom and where we see ourselves going as a district.
Just worth noting, Gordon, the projections for a potential para negotiation agreement are in here already.
Right.
And
So
when-
you'll see
It's a projection, but it's in
other
there.
expenses.
Yep.
Do you know
other
when
sides.
you think the
Well,
negotiation?
We're hoping very
We're
soon.
hoping,
Knock on wood.
I'm going to say Tuesday,
Oh, okay.
It's been an ongoing process.
Yeah.
We're very close. Yes.
Good for
which
you.
allowed us to get to some of the projections, at least better projections that we thought. And then, where was I? The last challenge, which is really a 3-year process, but 2 years in terms of budget appropriation. We have been changing our preschool model. We've gone from a 4-day model, only half-day programming, to a 5-day model with a combination of half-day and full-day programming. It's a peer partner preschool. So what that means is that there are students coming into the East Long Meadow Public Schools when they reach the age of 2 years, 9 months. If they've been receiving early intervention, we need to pick them up and start offering services. And what we try to do is have both students who are in that situation where we're providing services, as well as peer role models. And we try to build classrooms with a combination of both. What happens often, and what we're seeing over the last 2 years, is that numbers that we've seen in terms of new referrals, new students during the year, have gone from anywhere from, say, 10 over the course of the year to now closer to 20. So they're doubling. Those aren't exact, so I don't have them in front of me. I just wanted to give you the idea that they are doubling. I can get those for you if you like them.
And this is relatively new, as I recall, this
Right.
whole thing.
Well, this is, I would say this
The
is
numbers increasing.
post-pandemic.
Okay.
Is if you think about it, our current second graders, this is their first, if I can call it normal, let's say traditional year of school, where they aren't masking, they aren't distancing their desks in the classroom. We're getting back to reading rugs and that type of thing. And so if you now go push that down in the age ranges, that means you had a lot of children who were receiving their early intervention through Zoom, through screens. They weren't going into the homes. So when they hit our preschool, well, first of all, that means we have more students that we're now getting referred, seeing their pediatrician and so forth. And then when they hit our preschool, they haven't had the same type of hands-on learning that students in the past had. And so those demands have both increased our enrollment, but also increased the staffing that we're needing to make that preschool happen.
May I just add that
Absolutely, please.
at 2.9 years of age, we have to take the children. So you can imagine what that does to our ratios in the classroom, because we're supposed to have X number of role model, peer role model students for, IEP students, so that they're learning from each other. So it really skews the numbers and changes things. So we've been working with Meadowbrook and the school committee, approving different ideas for preschool to try to incorporate more classrooms or, more students, because the needs are up. And it's still an ongoing process. So it's still a work in progress.
Give you an idea. So I just pulled up our mid-cycle presentation that we did for the school committee. So we did this in late February or early March. In the fall, we had 65 integrated preschoolers. Now we have 73. So as they come in, we have to start offering services.
And they come in as they hit that 2 years, 9,
Correct.
so they could come in 3/4 of the year in.
We always have provided what we call walk-in services. So these are children who are not necessarily attending our preschool or our kindergarten, but since they live in town, they're still eligible for speech and language services is probably the biggest one. So our walk-ins in the fall were at 14. We are currently at 18. These were, as I said, early March. See if I have any other numbers that are good to share.
And this is all happening in Meadowbrook.
Yeah,
Or-
walk-in program happens at central
Central
office,
office.
but Meadowbrook is where the preschool is. Yeah.
So it's nice to see the little tykes in the morning when we're
Yeah.
coming into work.
It's actually made central office a better place. They're a lot of fun, and they bring toys, which is really cool. So that just gives you an example. So this is something that we needed to look at. The pandemic accelerated that because we knew we were going to be dealing with increased numbers. And the big thing that's helped as we've started to look at this over the last 3 years is ESSER's been a huge help, because what we've tried to do is balance. As we're adding staff, we're not trying to, in any one fiscal year, significantly spike a line item. And so what we've been doing, and I think you see as it's a little further down, but there's one of the bullet points that I make where it just talks about ESSER 3, and in our needs budget, which is not the level services budget, which is sort of moving all our services forward, if you will. We are moving 3 paraprofessionals, preschool paraprofessionals, off of ESSER. So they were paid through the ESSER grant this year. We're putting them into the operational budget because we don't see them not being needed when ESSER 3 goes away. And so
So does that go away?
September 30th, 2024. So we actually have it all next year, and then in the summer, which will be great for us for summer programs, but then it has to be expended again.
And for our audience and new members, can you explain what ESSER stands for?
that's a great question.
I know.
Or not, you don't even have to use
I
that.
don't know the exact
Acronym,
acronym,
what
but
it does.
it's basically it's the federal funding. I could look it up.
I know, I
quickly,
feel silly, I don't remember.
It's
What it
it's an acronym for the federal funding that goes to public school districts to basically help offset a lot of the challenges brought on by the pandemic. And actually, that's a good segue. There's a lot as we look at our budget development that centers in on challenges, and certainly the governor's budget, and then just recently the House Ways and Means budget, both recognized that Chapter 70 for East Long Meadow needed to increase. Last year, it increased a pretty significant amount. It was over $800,000. This year, at 15.4% and over $2 million, that's the biggest increase I've seen during my tenure. And I think I'd hazard a guess it might be the biggest increase that we've ever seen.
Ever.
Ever, yeah.
Thank you, Kathy.
Excuse me for a second. ESSER means, I just looked it up, Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief.
Thank you.
Okay.
I did know that. It's just, however,
I'm doing this all the time. We deal with a lot of acronyms, so.
thank you.
There's a ton of acronyms in education, so thank you very
Try
much.
to remember.
We appreciate that. So what we tried to do, knowing this, and let me give you some background as to why the last 2 years we're seeing increases in Chapter 70. What a few years ago, the Student Opportunity Act was passed. And what it was looking to do was help offset some of the flaws in the foundation budget, especially for urban centers. Not that East Long Meadow is an urban center, but it impacted all districts. But in the first year, you saw a lot of the urban centers receiving much more Chapter 70 than they had received in years past. That very first year, we received the bare minimum, which I think was $33 per student that were enrolled in their schools. And so it ended up being something like $70,000.
73,000.
That was a little challenging because when every school district has to put a plan together around the Student Opportunity Act and have certain goals. Our goals were around the preschool. It was around diversifying our staff, and it was around looking at how we support our special education students most appropriately. And as we put those goals together, and in the first year, our Chapter 70 only increased roughly $70,000. In our outlined budget for doing the Student Opportunity Act, we had over $80,000. That wasn't working incredibly well in terms of supporting what we were trying to do, but we still did it. And we've been implementing our Student Opportunity Act over the last 3 years. However, the last 2 years, Chapter 70 has really kicked in. Some of that, I think, is due to the fact that they redefined 2 years ago the low income status, what defined low income. And so as they did that, our statistics in terms of our enrollment, our low income has shot up. Let me pull up that to 27.4%. So of our students, and we have roughly 2,541 students, 27.4% are qualifying as low income. And that's a big piece for the Student Opportunity Act. Another part of that deals with students with disabilities. We have always fluctuated during my tenure somewhere between, say, 16% and 20%. Currently, we're just under 21%. We're about 20.9%. That spike I do attribute more to post-pandemic, that we're seeing more people that are being referred. We're all adjusting our skill sets. We're retraining and figuring out, okay, what truly is something that should be addressed through an individual education plan, what's something that should be addressed in the mainstream through regular education, and different settings that we can put together in the mainstream.
I know last year you had set up that program through River
Valley.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you still have that
We do.
partnership?
Yeah. Which has been really helpful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you see a resilience coming, and that those who are going through this, do you think it's just a short term, a year or two, and they get their groove? Or do you think this is an ongoing issue?
I'm going to stay optimistic. I don't know, a year or two, but I think that if we continue to put the support in place, that we will eventually see fewer referrals, but it's going to come through increased professional development, and increased understanding as to how we all are part of creating an environment that's supporting social, emotional, and academic growth. And that takes time. But I do know that our Student Support Services Director, Michael Fredette, this is his first year. That's something he's really looking at and saying, okay, we can do this better in terms of when students seem to have exhausted our services, but it's going to take time to figure out how do we get to better. And one of the things we're seeing on the other end is that even when we refer out, there are so many referrals to these out-of-district placement institutions that they're retooling, and they can't take all the students.
I was just going to add, Gordon, that we were very, very lucky, this district, that not only did we just get laptops for the kids right before the pandemic, with school committee and town council and, all of those meetings, but that we also had just started these relationships with like River Valley, because we secured services that other districts couldn't find. There's not enough therapists out there for the needs. So we were very, very fortunate.
And just so people understand that piece. So partnering with River Valley, where they provide therapists, this was something that always was a recommendation as you went to a team meeting. If a school system has exhausted its support services through its teaching staff, its special educators, its guidance counselors, and its adjustment counselors, and adjustment counselors have the training where they're on the path to be social workers. Many adjustment counselors actually have their license as a social worker, but two different licensures. You can get a DESE license as an adjustment counselor, and then you can go on and take a few more courses and get a license as a social worker. So we have adjustment counselors in all of our schools, and they're doing an incredible job working with our teachers, and they're actually delivering curriculum on a daily basis, as well as dealing with small groups and individuals. But when we've gotten to a point where, wow, even the support we're providing is not allowing this individual student to access learning on a more consistent basis or a regular basis. For years, teams would say, we really think, an outside counselor would be helpful. We want to refer you to an outside counselor. And families weren't necessarily fighting us on it. They'd say, great. And then they would go out and no one was taking new patients. There was nowhere to go. So you're just continuously going through this frustration of having the problem. River Valley came in and said, we can do this. We can partner with you. and work within the school day. And so it allows students to have that therapeutic setting maybe once a week. And then they're using some of the skills that they're gaining there to re-engage and make sure that they're participating in their direct learning situations.
Gordon, are we talking here about the tuition? Is that what the tuition?
So the River Valley is different. So River Valley is a partner. It's a community partner. It's not a line item at all. We partner with them. They are paid through student family insurance.
Okay.
Tuition is a line item.
Yeah. And that's an interesting one,
Right.
Because that's rough math here. 1 out of every $17.
Yeah.
Right. How many children are
Out of district.
afforded that?
The out of district
Curious.
It's like 100.
get a lot on IEPs. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
they're,
Let me,
because I was.
I can get
thinking-
back to you on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it'd be wrong.
Curious about.
I was thinking about, it was in the 30s,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's like 30.
30. Okay, so I was gonna say 33. So it's around there, I believe.
Yeah.
It's a significant number that it does cost the district.
And extends beyond age 18 as well.
Yes, it
22.
does, 22.
Yep.
Yes,
I know what you mean.
Those,
Thank you.
it eats up a lot of the budget.
So I'll get that for you. I just wanted to finish up these points, but then I'll come back to that just so you have an idea. So as then we move from challenges and we start to gain more information as to what Chapter 70 might be. And then we have a small party when we learn there's 15.4% CARES dollar that was just paid for by us. So that was a joke. We start to put together first our level services budget, which is, as I said before, we look at programming. Is it effective? It's effective. If it is effective, we want to move it forward. We want to move staff forward. And so that's where our level services budget is developed. As we're doing that, we also look at what retirements we have. And so what we do is the savings is taken ahead of time before we present you the budget request, is we'll say, okay, Gordon Smith's retiring at this salary. We'll put in a budget range or placeholder of Masters 8. Now, you could hire, we don't force our principals to hire at Masters 8. They could hire the best candidate and the person may come in Masters 4. All educators eventually within their first 5 years have to get a master's. So generally we're dealing with candidate pools that have masters. Or they may hire someone with even more experience, and that's the best candidate for the job. And so that's Masters 10. Generally, we found that if we'll budget somewhere around Masters 8, we're right around there. Some may come in at Masters 12, but someone else may hire someone at Masters 2. And so far, that's worked pretty well. So then we move forward with that, and we take a look at out-of-district tuitions, what our service providers increasing to. They were able to increase up to 14%. What may be in the pipeline in terms of referrals to out-of-district placements. And we did have a few this year, which is why that line item is going to go up 17% for us. And then we start to look at what do we feel we need is most urgent to help us get and solve some of the challenges that we had listed out. And that's where we start to look at, okay, we know our preschool has to continue to be staffed at an appropriate level. And so we've been carrying some paraprofessionals on ESSER. We're moving those hopefully into the operational budget. We still have some preschool staff on ESSER next year. And then we also are looking 3 years ago, I think it was FY21, when we were in COVID, state, the country, town, we were all unsure, where are we going with this? What are the financial impacts going to be? They held Chapter 70 at the same level. So we received the same exact Chapter 70 from the previous year, FY20 and FY21. That year we made a number of cuts to our budget. And one of those cuts was a special education teacher position that specifically looks at how to support children with social and emotional needs, and how do we do that in the academic setting. So that was at the youngest level. We have a teacher with those type of skills at every level, but we don't have one at Meadowbrook right now.
Can I just add, Gordon,
Please do.
that we didn't just eliminate that position. We had some decisions to make as a town, right, to work together because we didn't know what was going to happen. So we took a look at all of our vacant positions. That was a vacant position at the time. And so that's why we chose that position. It's not that it wasn't needed. I just want to be very clear on
Great
that.
point. Yeah. Yeah, we're not looking to just displace people from
Right.
jobs.
Yeah.
So that's where we got to where we are in terms of the 3.9%. The back page is simply just a chart knowing the history of Chapter 70 and where local contribution has been. We all know there's a foundation level that municipalities have to meet. East Long Meadow has always been incredible with their support for education. So that's never been an issue. One of the things that we were looking at was certainly with the 15.4% increase, we could have maybe asked for more, but we're also very aware that everyone is dealing with challenges, every department, and we weren't the only ones affected by the pandemic. Everyone now needs to grow as we come out of the pandemic last few years. And so we wanted to be fiscally responsible and balanced with how much we ask for. So it does, the way we've outlined it right now, it does allow for an actual reduction in terms of the local contribution. That's the highlighted line.
So as we look, we know last year we were talking about school population numbers, enrollment figures. And we know that a lot left during, or not a lot, but
A lot.
an amount. And some started coming back. How is that going? Where do we fit with?
We are actually back to our pre-pandemic numbers. We're at 20.
See that stabilized or?
I think it's the last 2 years it's been stabilized. And I think that we're going to see our kindergarten last few years. It's had a year where it spiked, then it's come back to sort of the 160 level. I think we're going to see more. There's something that we've been looking at as we work on the high school project and the feasibility study. Because I was arguing with the Mass School Building Authority for a high school that could enroll 900. I didn't win that argument, but we are closer now to 800 level, which is what our enrollment is right now, about 834, I think, at the high school.
Well, I would think a concern. This town has room to grow.
Right.
So that's definitely something to look at. And at this point, if you have questions,
We make a general comment that I think in these times, to be able to keep a budget increase to 3.9% is amazing. So great work.
I tip my hat to Mr. Thompson.
Now to make that happen.
Well, behind closed doors, there was an excited superintendent
And
who was
assistant
an exciting
very excited about that $2 million.
who, although we were still going to stay, what I thought was fiscally responsible, we did ask for a little bit more. We did roll.
That we brought to the school committee.
We brought to the school committee, and we had a really good discussion at the school committee level. And Mr. Thompson, as chair, sits and does the agenda with us. And so he was very aware of what we were presenting. And he presented an alternative that made a lot of sense. We want to stay balanced. We want to stay growing at a decent level, but obviously not overwhelmed.
And the reality is we're looking for a high school and we're looking for a vote of the town in November. And so if by this budget, we can offer some relief even to the taxpayer, even in theory, we felt that this was an opportunity to do that. So even at the requested budget, which, as Gordon said, was level plus, still, as you see on the second page, required local contribution less of $707,000 from the taxpayers of East Long Meadow, if the budget's approved as it is. So hopefully people get that in their mind and know that we're all working together as a town and as representatives of the town to have everyone feel as comfortable as possible as voting yes on the new high school in November.
Just so everybody's aware, Chapter 70 flows through the town. It's not something that goes directly to schools. So when we talk about money that, would still be there for the town, that's what we're talking about.
How is school choice? What are we doing? Where are we?
We are still participating
Our third year.
Third year. How we've been doing it, I think, is a really balanced approach. It allows the opportunity for neighboring towns to possibly participate in a school district that I think is excellent. And we do it only at grade levels where the enrollment is down. So we're not overwhelming class size. We're not overwhelming resources. So this year at third grade, because the current second grade is a lower enrollment than sort of our average enrollment, if you will. So as they go into third grade, the school committee offered, I think it was eight total.
Eight slots.
Eight slots. We also recommended, if we could, do it at the, when possible, when enrollment allows you to do such, do it at the lower grade so that students have the chance to grow up through the East Long Meadow Public Schools. We think that that's the real advantage.
Couple more questions regarding that. So we get, it's stayed at the $5,000 reimbursement or from the other towns.
That's right.
And current cost for an educator is about 18 grand.
Yeah, we just dipped below. I just did that actually.
Yeah.
So the per pupil
It's about the same
expenditure.
as last year.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And once they're in, they have the opportunity to stay in through, so they're not being yanked around.
So if school committee chose to, that's a great point. School committee chose not to participate, our current school choice students would be allowed to stay through graduation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I had one more question. Gone out of my head.
So we strategically put or choose classes that are smaller in size so that there's not a direct impact on the operating budget. There's no increase personnel per se based on adding these 8 additional students because those classes are smaller. So yes, the per pupil cost is X, but that's the total amount divided by the number of students. By adding a student, that doesn't mean we're adding that much cost to the town.
Give you an example. So I talked about grade 2. So the grade 2 enrollment right now is 162 students. The grade 3 enrollment is 186 students. Grade 4 is 178. Grade 5 is 197. We used to average in the 190s, somewhere in there. So grade 2 is actually our lowest enrollment if you're not looking at kindergarten. Kindergarten's at 156.
So when we get them, and I understand it's through lottery.
Right.
Okay. So what happens if we have a few students and now they have to go to, say, out of district special?
Those are all great questions because we're wrestling.
It's kind of has that happened? And is there a circuit breaker and does it work well?
Correct. So you hit all of the points. So let me provide some background detail. So 5,000 is the cost. And so just truth be told, we have students coming in via choice and we have students going out via choice. So we're also sending the 5,000 to other districts.
Do we know how many do that?
We do. 26 go out, 33 come in. So if a school choice student, and Mr. Fredette and I are doing this probably at the end of next week, because I just scheduled it today. He doesn't know about it yet.
He knows now.
School choice, Ross.
He's on Zoom.
Is he on Zoom? Okay.
Surprise.
So we have to go through our school choice roster. It's similar to the circuit breaker. Circuit breaker is for our entire enrollment, but school choice has a very specific portal. And so we go through that. We go through the roster. Any special education services that are sort of beyond a threshold that DESE gives us, we then put those in. We put the hours, we put the practitioners that are working with those children, and then they tell us if we're going to receive additional money, usually after the fact, which did happen last year, and we are pretty sure will happen again.
I've seen an increase like between $4,000 to $8,000 on those students, so that there is that special ed component. And if a student were to need to go out of district, there is also some safety nets built in, and I believe that those funds would come back to the school department in the school revolving account
Through circuit breaker.
yeah.
Okay.
So that help to offset those expenditures.
And so for those of you who are new to the circuit breaker,
Thank you.
literally has saved
Mhm.
school districts from, because especially out of district, you've got to provide transportation, tuition, full support all the way through age 22. And it's a lot of money. So the state set this up so that it isn't a huge money suck.
Right. So the circuit breaker is a situation where the state has basically set up that each year the school systems can start to put in what they've spent on specific students above a certain threshold. I believe it's like $43,000 now.
It might be
47,000. So if any student where we've spent additional money in terms of the support we provided, and when we say the support we provided, you're now bringing in, hours versus someone's salary in terms of support they've provided, different practitioners who work with that student, out of district students, and so forth. So once you claim all that, and actually Mr. Fredette just finished that up prior to this vacation week, basically the legislature each year in the budget will set up to 75% of that money above the $47,000 threshold being reimbursed. So I believe the governor's budget, I also believe, but I didn't read that closely on that part. So I was looking at just the Chapter 70. Both have supported 75% again for next year's budget, which is great. So if they do that, it really helps us, because we'll get that through quarterly payments. And next year, what it can do is it can offset a lot of these costs as we go forward. And we are always pretty conservative in terms of how we're thinking about using circuit breaker, the Individual with Disabilities Education Act grant money, and the operational budget money that we designate towards tuition. And all three of those resources go to predominantly out of district tuition. Would that be accurate?
That is accurate. Yep. So we have an IDEA grant this year. $770,000 of the $800,000 grant goes to out of district tuitions. Circuit breaker. As an example, eligible expenses for this year is $3.5 million. Our net claim that we're going to get back is $1.3 million. Transportation is new. It's brand new for part of the formula, because they finally are recognizing that it's big. So that's $323,000 of eligible expenditures that I believe the transportation is going to be at 100% next year. It's new, so I don't know if I'm stating that accurately, but this is a significant amount of money, and it does come back directly to the school, so that this is part of the whole budget process behind the scenes. When I'm looking at the different funding sources for special education, we have to take a look at where our kids are now, and then we sit with the special ed director to talk about and where do we see them next year. Some leave the programs, which is great, but some come on. And so then we have to put a dollar figure to that and total it all up. And then I look at our funding sources to see, okay, what do we have for IDEA and what do we have for circuit breaker? I don't want to ever use all the circuit breaker if I don't have to. I think that's fiscally responsible, because at any time we could have a student move into the district. we've had to come to town council before, and I don't want to have to do that just once, because that safety net wasn't there. So live and learn. We want a little bit of a buffer there to be able to help if that did happen. But all of that is taken into consideration when we're doing the operating budget.
And that's why that revolving account, it's a revolving account. The circuit breaker has a good balance in it sometimes because Pam does manage it. And it's actually a look back. So the money is slow to come. We expend all that money. Then there's the look back. Then they decide on how much we qualify for. And then we receive the quarterly payments. So by keeping that balance, it's a cushion for those big blows that come sometimes without notice. And so Pam manages that. That's why sometimes that balance in that circuit breaker is high because it'll be used. Yeah. So.
Right.
And so actually, as we look at those three funding sources for district tuition, that also helps mitigate. I mean, 17% is a pretty incredible increase. It would have been higher without circuit breaker and IDEA, because we would have had to put all that of district tuition in the operational budget.
And the way the law works with circuit breaker is a district receives these funds and we can legally roll over one entire year's funds, which would be great if I could say we rolled over 1.3, but that's not going to happen. But I am hoping that maybe it'll be 600,000 of that, because we've had some things that happened in special ed this year that weren't quite expected a year ago. So luckily I had that there and we had to use more of the circuit breaker funds. Does that make sense?
Other comments?
So I've got a question on the school choice. Said we've got 26 students out. Of those 26, I mean, are they spread out throughout all the grades, or most of those are high school? And is that choice part of what do I want to say? Program as far as for whether it be wood shop, automotive, it's part of a school choice, isn't it?
Well,
No,
So just, hey, I want to go to Wilbraham instead of East Long Meadow for some reason.
Yeah, or Chinese immersion school or things, some of them more
Performing arts.
specific like that. Performing arts.
some of that, yes.
And
But
public schools, they have to
they
go
have to be a
to
public school.
Okay.
So you have some that, you know, we don't necessarily have exit interviews with the students or the families when they're going, because we usually learn after the fact. But of the 26, you do have some who may be traveling with a parent who teaches in that school system. And so then they've got school choice through that.
Here's our list, Gordon.
And I can understand
My
why
budget Bible.
not want to be in East Long Meadow.
I know.
Well,
agree more.
but it's true, Ralph. Education is great in East Long Meadow, so people move here for it. So it's unusual to get those to move up, but they're circumstantial more than a search for better general education, I would say.
So you have a wide variety. You have high school, you have second, third, sixth, you have kindergarten.
Yeah, I mean,
The majority may be high school, because I'm seeing a lot of 10th grade and 11th grade, but intermixed in there, you're seeing kindergarten, second, third, sixth.
And
with those younger grades, if somebody works in
First.
that district, it just might be easier for them to bring their own child with them,
Right.
if it's allowed.
If it's
So is this 26 been steady? I mean, or is this, hey, we've increased up to 26? Because I know
I'd have to look at past years, but
school choice, we were at 0, but
Yeah,
it sounds like we were still.
we don't have to opt in for people to
Right.
go other places. Correct. Yeah.
I'd have to look that up.
Yeah.
I don't have the history, but
It's more curious than
Yeah.
anything. Like I said, it's just,
a few years ago it was 18, so it's grown to 26 over the last couple of years. But I could be wrong on that.
Perhaps if we get a new high school, that change. Saying.
the ESSER 3. Do we have a rough idea of what's in it? That's the last one that we have, right?
This is the last grant, and I just did my third quarter, which the school committee will be getting on Monday night. I'm showing in
Preview.
Yes. Well,
Karen.
so we have
A lot of secret.
yeah.
Well, it goes public on school.
That's why we save the good stuff for us.
ESSER 3 is a very large grant. It is 2,230,447. As of right now, we have as of March 31st, we had available 1,862,197. I'm anticipating rolling over probably about 1.6 million. Of that, half of that will most likely, the plan is for that to be curriculum. We're going to be sitting with the school committee to have those discussions on the length of the curriculum, because now we brought in all this new curriculum because Desi has all these initiatives and changing. And it's all great. And we're implementing all of that. And Gordon, please, if I'm not saying it
No,
accurately.
you're saying actually, you're talking licenses.
Licenses,
more. Yeah,
I am, yes.
So what we're trying to do is use ESSER to set us up well into the future. So if we can select the correct, in this case, what Pam was talking about was a lot of our personalized curriculum or software. And so these are things like that you may have heard us say at school committee meetings, ST Math. What's the
And Wit and Wisdom? Or is it a different
no,
one?
that's our ELA curriculum.
This is where we have our curriculum director.
It's ST Math, it's iReady, it's some of the other personalized software that we use that can meet a student exactly where that student is in his or her learning. It's not the main curriculum, but it's augmenting the main curriculum. And we use iReady actually. K-8 has become part of our diagnostic, our assessment system, so that we have an idea of where students are throughout the year. So we do that 3 times a year. We use their diagnostic to give us an idea. Are they beyond grade level? Are they on grade level? Are they approaching grade level? And as we've seen, unfortunately, in the last few years, we have more students at the beginning of the year when we do that September assessment. They're in that red area than I've seen in previous years of my tenure. And so we're looking to support and accelerate if possible. And so that's what a lot of, we're using ESSER for. If we can stay away from having it carry personnel, we're trying to, but it does have personnel salaries in it, right? Mostly preschool.
And permanent building subs also, which have been a game changer at the schools. That's what we hear from the principals. As you can imagine, trying to juggle in the morning when you have a no-show or a last-minute cancel, and you got a classroom full of kids. So has it been 2 years, Gordon? When did we implement that? 3 years?
3 years.
Get confused with the pandemic. It's kind of like, did this happen last year or was that 3 years ago?
What that allowed us to do, or the schools to do, was to have subs on hand every day, because obviously a lot of people were out and without moment's notice, perhaps. So it was perfect to have the 3 in each of the buildings. At least we tried to. I know there were some vacancies.
Mm-hmm.
Those paid through ESSER grant, which was to help out in the emergency. What you're seeing today is 3 of those paraprofessionals that were formerly on ESSER coming off and going on the operating budget. Gordon spoke about those already. And then there's 3 more paraprofessionals still on ESSER that we will carry 1 more year with ESSER and then reevaluate. The building subs, we have gone down from 3 to 1. Am I there?
Okay. I was thinking, I'm sorry.
No,
I thought we were going to move 1 over to the operating budget and then continue to carry.
so we have in the
ESSER.
operating budget, yes. Within the operating budget, we have a line item for substitute teachers. And instead of piecemealing each individual day, what we're planning to do is move 1 of each of those permanent subs onto the same line item that didn't go up substantially.
That's correct.
The substitute line item, and fund those through
Right
the
from that
substitute,
line.
because now we need less day-to-day subs because we have them there all the time, which in theory, they're there all the time anyway on a regular basis. It's so much more streamlined to have the same person there every day. It makes so much sense.
Mhm.
And then we have proper coverage when those are out. So, the substitute line item is not going up, but now there are those 3 personnel who are already here. They're already in the
Right.
building, but now on that operating budget.
1 per building.
One
One
per
per
building.
building, yep.
Yep. Thank you.
So with substitute teachers, let's say there's a perfect day when everybody shows up, and there probably isn't. Is that
The first day of the year.
well, okay? That answers then. So that's why there is someone there every day versus,
Yes.
to carry someone and then not have anything for
Right.
them.
And they still have day-to-day subs in addition to the single, but at least the one is there. And I'm sure on any given day, there's 3 to 5 to, yeah.
Well, and there's many meetings that happen throughout the school day, as you can imagine, special ed meetings, curriculum meetings.
So they can substitute.
Yes.
It isn't just go in for a day. There's a
There,
meeting and
yes.
sub
Yes.
that class block or
Correct.
whatever.
They're
Okay.
used throughout the day in many different ways. And given that they're not part of the unit bargaining, they have less ability to, you have to have a planning, but nope. They're used all
Okay.
7 blocks. Say that.
Things have changed a bit since my day. Any other questions? Kathy?
No,
Ken?
I'm good. I'm good. This is familiar.
Yes, I
topic.
So I've got a question. Foundation enrollment. Is that the actual enrollment or,
Enrollment that I mentioned.
yeah, well, that's on the actual sheet. It says foundation enrollment.
Right here.
Excuse me.
The number that you mentioned,
That's 2541. They have 2543, which is good for us, Ralph, because that's the number that the
Okay.
state uses to give us Chapter 70.
I wrote your number down wrong then. I thought.
No, so they're giving us 2 more students.
No, I thought you said 2451 and I'm like, that's way off. 2450.
I may have. So I apologize.
Okay.
But the current, so this is as of October 1.
Yeah.
That's when they set the foundation budget. And then we report to DESI 2 more times in March and in June. So I just pulled up, someone had a question and I have the special ed question number for you. But we're at 2541 according to our March reporting. And we're at 33 students out of district.
Oh, we're good, Gordon. So we said
So,
30.
I mean, from FY19, which looks like the high at 2707, we're down, well, at the low point in 22, we were down 275.
Yeah.
So it looks like another 111 back into the school system. So, I mean, COVID really
Mhm.
Took
Yeah.
took the toll on it. And,
A lot chose homeschooling.
You can see right there.
also.
yeah,
Homeschooling, that's a great point.
Yeah, that was
So
big.
homeschooling almost tripled in that year where we started with remote and so forth. And it has come down, but it has not come down to where it was pre-pandemic. So that's good.
so what this is just telling me is we need less one-on-one computers. Saving everywhere.
We need a lot of computers. You know
Interesting
that.
As long as they're renewed computers, yeah, we can.
Anything else?
Do we have a grant writer?
We do not. So that's a great question. So grants get somewhat distributed in terms of who's applying and who's writing. A lot of them are written by our director of curriculum, Heather Brown, and she does a really good job of going after not only competitive grants, but we also have grants such as the IDEA grant. She doesn't write that one. Mr. Fredette, Michael Fredette does, because that's the Individual with Disabilities Education Act grant. So it gets distributed. And then we may have principals who say, hey, I was looking into this. This is interesting. I think we can qualify. A big thing with grants is, do your demographics allow you to put in for it? And we're becoming much more diverse in our enrollment. And as I said, our low income percentage has grown considerably. And so we may become competitive for some of these or eligible for some of these grants.
Pretty significant at 27%.
And that percentage enables us to get grants that come to the district. The Title I grant, Title IIA,
Right.
Title IV, Special Ed IDEA, Special Ed Early Childhood Grant, Comprehensive School Health Grant, METCO grant. Those are all ones that we get every single
Based on statistics
yeah, so those.
solely.
Yeah, MECO we participate in.
I think
Sorry.
the pretty good ROI on that being a position or an outside person that can do it, but.
I think, Jim, the big money ones are certainly reflected in that we get. I think some of the smaller ones potentially would be out there, but the budget impactful ones, I believe in being in this position for 15 years, we get.
Yeah.
Yes, there are the outliers out there, the specific ones, the ones that the principals find, for $1,000, a couple $1,000, but budget impacting, I think we get them. We get what we can.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea, so one of the competitive grants that we put in for and got was the Open SciEd grant. And this year that allowed us to have an additional $36,000. Excuse me, I apologize.
And so that was a grant that was written by the curriculum director and Birchland Park principal, I believe. So they do go after someone, especially during COVID. I think there was a lot of very unique grants out there. And so this is just reflecting what we have now, but now we're 3 years later. So a few years ago, I think we had more individual ones, which I'm so sorry I'm not remembering right now. But if you want
Project Lead the Way was a big one.
Yeah, Project Lead the Way, that was a big one.
So we've actually had that one for about 5 years, and it's it was both been on the elementary level and on the high school level, and it's building more math and engineering skills. First, with a lot of hands-on activities at the elementary level, and then building certain courses at the high school level that really center in on math and engineering concepts.
I remember there was one that first year when we brought the kids back, they were really encouraging, of course, summer schools. There was like a matching grant
to run summer programs.
Yeah, to run summer programs, try to get these kids back. There's a lot of fear there, and
right,
by students and staff. So that was a whole another hurdle that we had to get over. Anyway.
No, I was just going to say, so that allowed us to run. So we always run what's called an extended school year for students who are on IEPs who qualify for that. That runs in the summer every year. The last 3 years, we've run summer programming. It's been open to all of our students and on a first come, first served basis until we fill up. And those have been run on grants. So eventually we're going to have to look at, do we keep doing that? How do we do it when these grants run out? But if more competitive grants pop up, we will certainly put in for them.
Okay, I think that if anyone has any more questions? We have a little time to do a little more business.
So if I don't, your athletic service fees, how long has it been since they were increased? I know you want to
20 years. Over 20 years.
It's
I was
the same.
assistant principal when they were put in place. And that was 2000.
No, it's changed though. The numbers changed.
No, 149. You said fees, right?
The fees that you charge for sports, basically.
Never gone up since 2003.
Okay.
Yeah, 20 years. I'm sorry. Going into 21st year.
Okay, and currently you're running a deficit, and that's why there's a line item for it.
Excuse me.
That's part of it.
So I know there's rental income from stadium and this and that.
Well, that we use towards the rehabilitation of the track.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if there's
So that was
that are within there, whether a revolving fund or something like that, a coffee fund. Or
That's all part of behind the scenes as well.
Start charging
So
for
when-
coffee. I don't know.
When Kevin McGee works with us on the athletic budget, that's all taken into consideration as well. That's another funding source. It costs a little over $500,000. I think it's 519,000. I don't know if the rest, but about 519,000 to run the athletic program. And one of the funding sources is the revenue that we're projecting coming in the following year to help offset. So what happens is as we have additional students, perhaps that qualify for free and reduced low income, we don't charge them a fee now. So do you see how quickly things can change? And we see our demographics changing in the town. So there is a ramification of that. And then that on top of the expenditures that have supply chain issues, just everything so much more expensive than projected at the time. And so he is expecting a bit of a deficit this year. And for next year, he was expecting close to $50,000 deficit. And it was also the philosophy of the school committee. I don't mean to speak for you,
No,
but keep the fees low for our so the kids can
That's it, exactly.
participate.
It's a participation issue, and the committee, as long as I've been on it, has emphasized the accessibility to all students and not to discourage them to participate. So instead of potentially doubling that, and if you were to play 3 sports, you're pushing $1,000 potentially. We want to encourage as much participation as that's first before the cost. When I was there, it's $20.
Size 20.
Yeah, that is a long
$20.
time.
Or something.
Yeah.
We've looked
So,
at it
you got to keep,
a number of times.
you got to be reasonable. There's a lot of cost to it. Transportation is expensive. We pay the coaches, we pay the association, the referee, all those sorts of things. There's an expense to it, but to keep it as reasonable as possible, that's why we stick to that number. And we talk about it. It comes up, at least once a year. But we've always held the line on that just because we want, and participation is down. Surprisingly, it's down. We have teams
for some teams, not for all teams.
Yeah. When we just had a waiver
Baseball.
for baseball. We couldn't field 2 baseball teams, 7th and 80 some in high school.
Yeah.
So we had to get a waiver to have 7th and 8th graders to field the JV team.
Maybe team.
So, it's cyclical. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, isn't it different? So you don't want to put those tall hurdles in front of anybody who wants to participate.
And so just to let you know, Ralph, I know you just mentioned the revolving accounts. As of March 31st, the athletic revolving account has a balance of $17,000. It's not like huge money.
No, exactly. And
The stadium rental has $10,000 in it. So yeah, there are funds in there, but we try to stay on top of maintaining the athletic fields. And
The rentals have fallen off a little bit for the stadium.
And a lot of which I think is because the town uses it so much to some extent,
Right.
Which is good.
Which
It
is
goes
good.
to the
We'd rather
town
have that,
first, and
yeah.
it's
Right.
open. I see people from the community there all the time using the track and whatnot. So
And
we want to encourage that. But
I think the other piece is
the money's off a little bit. Yeah.
They can
Rentals.
go and if you say, look at Chicopee Comp, they have concessions, they have bathrooms, they have other things which we can't offer.
Which leads us for the sales pitch for the new high school. The yes vote in November.
I set that up.
Bathrooms, new concessions, and a new announcer's box on top. So improvements to that fields that we've been looking to do for so very long on that field. It's all incorporated. So we can compete with other towns in that realm,
right.
Or at least offer the right amenities that people are looking for our town.
If you build it, they will come.
That's right.
So Don, one last question. We created a compensation review committee and we analyzed the school committee salary and all, and there was a recommendation to increase it more than what you have in the budget.
yeah, we left it level funded. That was a school committee.
Talk about it and just decide that, hey, at this funding
We knew
you're asking for is
no. Our thought was your work. Weren't sure that your work was done, and I would imagine it would go to the full council first. So instead of us preemptively coming up with either a different number or an assumptive number, we use the level services. We use the same number as last year.
Knowing that there was a study.
last
Right,
year,
yes.
10,250.
Says if,
Right,
the
but
town
we're
manager-
relying on the recommendations to have whatever effect they have. You know what I'm saying?
Right, but
I do.
Okay.
But if it comes to the council,
yeah,
because it's not in the budget,
It's in Mary's.
Mary increased it.
Mary,
Number
Yeah,
2,
look
what's it
at
called?
that. Yeah, she
Level 2 manager.
town manager.
She
So what she did was currently, if you don't mind me saying, so the chair gets $2,100 and each school committee member, the 4 of them, gets $1,600. I believe Mary's recommendation when I looked at that was to increase each of those by $400. So the chair would get $2,500 and each of the 4 members would get $2,000. I believe that was her recommendation.
That's annually.
Yes, that's yes.
I think without looking at it, I think
Right, sound right?
somewhere in the brain.
Okay. Does that make sense, Phil?
yes, it makes sense. Like I said, it's not what the committee had come up with, but that makes sense.
We were trying not to step on your toes.
It's an increase, which, like I said,
Yeah.
you deserve. We analyzed it. I know Kathy chaired it, and I didn't see the same numbers, and that's what brought up my question.
Good job.
Okay. Well, I think
Exhausted all your time.
we've done a good job on our questions. I personally, I don't see a need to have them come back. Do you feel we need to? Perhaps after we have a discussion, if there's any extra,
If there's anything else,
we'll shoot.
Absolutely. Please.
But this way,
And we're happy to come back too.
Yeah.
As you can see, I can talk.
we'll, well,
Sorry, Marilyn.
For what it's worth, I'm just sitting here thinking that the justification for those additional positions. Even though you were going for a new high school, they need to, I think they need to be filled personally.
Remember, that's part of the 3.9%. That is, and basically of that 3.9, it's 2.9 is from the salary side of the budget and 1%
Yeah.
on the expense side of the budget. That's what it boils down
If you're
to.
really feeling generous, I have other positions that I can offer. But I do want to stay with our original balanced approach.
I certainly want to invite everyone. We're having our next open forum May 18th for the new high school. You all have interest in the financial well-being of this town. So please, if you're available,
It may be here.
maybe here.
We have to
Yeah, we'll have to
decide.
schedule it.
We've done a forum here and we've done 2 forums at the high school. And we're thinking that maybe we should cycle back to here. So we have to decide that and start to advertise.
I know this was a new format this year, and I just want to say I'm really pleased and worked well with Kim on it and the new finance director.
just one quick question.
Sure.
In the format,
Yep.
it says, current year, actuals.
All right.
Do you know what dates are these through third quarter?
No,
No.
they're definitely not.
Can you send me third quarter so I can just send them out, just so we see a closer picture?
Set up in the same format or a copy of the
Just
third
whatever you,
financial
that's
report?
fine. Yeah,
So
no extra,
you can just take it. They haven't seen, is it okay if you guys haven't?
or can you send it, email, can you email
Wait,
a third?
yeah, I'm sorry. I
Simple as possible, I don't want any.
Yeah, we'll email it.
Just where we are.
No, it just comes to the board for an approval and just to honor the process.
Well, yes, I mean, protocol.
Pam is on all the time, and so I entrusted it. Also, though, acknowledge that a lot of things are already, it's not acquired. What are they, Pam?
Encumbered.
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 Salaries are all encumbered already.
Exactly.
So it's kind of a weird snapshot, but certainly, yeah.
And I don't want to jump.
Yeah.
If
Get
you
it
guys
figured
have
out.
to approve before.
Again, we're trying to keep all the good juicy stuff for our meeting, so crowds continue to come out every time.
So
All right.
We will.
that.
Yeah,
Thank
done.
you.
So much.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Your time.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Go and enjoy the rest of.
Oh,
Yes,
I'm gonna go
enjoy
back-
your afternoon.
We're going back to the office.
Yeah.
I wish I was going home, but it's not today.
Well,
Another day. That's okay.
yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
So we're almost at 3:00, so we're not going to start looking through some of our other budgets, the ones take care. Next meeting, I've scheduled, now the brain has to think, who did I schedule? DPW and IT. Some biggies. And I allocated half an hour for, now with the school, that's such piece. We started a little late, which was fine, and we went over a little. That's next time I'm hoping to hold the line on it so that we can get through some of these that I don't think will be that difficult to get through. We kind of perused them last time and nothing really stuck out, but we will have time to discuss a little bit and get some votes done, because as we agreed, we would approve things as we went along so that at our last meeting, we're not going through the entire book full and trying to remember where we sat with it. With that, I wrote my other thing. Any old business? Any new business? Do we want to adjourn a little early?
It's your choice.
Gentlemen, I'm looking at you.
I would in no way oppose that.
Yeah, really.
Okay.
Why not?
Move.
I would even move forward with that.
I would
You
second it.
seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Kathy?
I,
Aye.
I believe it's
All right.
all right.
Oh, my goodness. Yes. Kathy?
You keep putting me.
yes.
Yes. I am a yes.
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 Thank you. Thank you all. Kathy, enjoy.
Bye, Kathy.
I'll be back with you in person next week.
Okay. Forward to it. Have a safe flight.
Thank you.